We're going to be reflecting tonight on the role of hope, the role of hope on the spiritual path. And by that I mean really the trust in our unfolding lives, the trust in this living world. And I'd like to begin that with a classic story of a big, tough samurai who once went to see a very little monk. And he said in a voice that was accustomed to being obeyed, he said, "Teach me about heaven and hell." And the little monk looked up at the mighty warrior and he looked at him with utter disdain. He said, "Teach you about heaven and hell? I couldn't teach you about anything. You're dirty. You smell. Your blade's rusty. You're a disgrace and embarrassment to the samurai class. Get out of my sight. I can't stand you. So the samurai is completely furious and he gets all red in the face and he pulls out his sword. He's speechless with rage and he's about to slay the little monk. And the monk says, "That's hell." So the samurai is now overwhelmed with the compassion and the surrender of this little monk who really was willing to sacrifice his life to convey this teaching and show him hell. And he puts down his sword, and you can sense he's filled with gratitude. He's suddenly deeply peaceful. And the little monk said, "And that's heaven." What I like about this story is that the wake up of the samurai comes so clearly from that flash of, oh, there's goodness in this life. There's connection. There's heart. There's something really basic here that I can trust. And so heaven is that experience of that connectedness, of touching into that basic goodness and trusting that basic goodness. And what it does is it allows us to move through the world open and available. That's the gift. Hell is believing in separateness. It's that sense that something's intrinsically wrong with me, with you, that there's a threat because there's just nothing really okay in this universe. In some basic way, it's hell's a dangerous, miserable place. There's nothing okay. And one of the illustrative stories is of a man dying and going to hell, and Satan greets him and shows him 3 doors. There's a lot of these types of stories, but this is one of them. He says, you have to spend the rest of eternity in one of these 3 rooms. And look in each one and just decide which one, you're going to do it in. And the guy opens the first door and he sees a bunch of people standing on their heads on a wooden floor, looking very uncomfortable. And he opens a second door and he sees a bunch of people standing on their heads on a concrete floor looking even more uncomfortable. Finally, he opens a third door and he sees a bunch of people sitting around chatting and drinking coffee. They're up to their knees in shit, but they're seeming to have a nice time. And he goes, that doesn't look great, but it's better than the other 2. I'll take the third door. So Satan smiles and shows him in. 10 minutes later, Satan walks back into the room and says, "All right, coffee break's over. Everybody back on your heads." That's a pretty bad one, isn't it? But the idea is this, that the worst part of hell is that sense of eternity, that things are bad and they're never going to get better. It's the lack of hope. And that's what causes depression. That our life energy sinks because there's a sense, and this is the hellishness of depression, that there's nothing ahead that we can count on. There's no intrinsic goodness or hopefulness in this universe.